Breaking news coming out this evening in the past couple of hours today, October 29th, 2025, as take a look at the latest headlines with me. Trump has ordered the Pentagon to begin testing nuclear weapons immediately. Here's another one coming out. Trump orders U.S. nuclear weapons testing to begin immediately after Russia tests its new missile. And Trump orders the Pentagon to immediately restart nuclear weapons testing to compete with Russia and China's arsenal. And you can see this just coming out in the past hour. We're getting these updates, and let's go ahead and take a look at the actual Truth Social post so that way you can see it for yourself. This new order coming out here. The United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. This was accomplished including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term in office. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but had no choice. Russia is second and China is a distant third, but will be even within 5 years. Because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. You can see coming out October 29th, 2025 at 8:04 p.m. It is currently 10:01 p.m., so just shy of 2 hours ago, we are getting this message from Donald Trump that the United States Pentagon has been given the order to begin nuclear weapons testing for the United States immediately.
This doesn't sound like things are headed for a cool down anytime soon, but I can certainly see the point in doing this. If these other countries are testing out their nuclear weapons, which can only really be seen as a threat, because you wouldn't really waste the time and the money testing out weapons that you have no intention on using, then I guess at the very least we should be showing our ability to retaliate. We surely shouldn't just sit here and do nothing. I'm hoping this is just a show of might by Russia and the US, just to basically show that they mean business and there are no actual plans to use these things. If these nuclear weapons are as powerful as they claim they are, all it's going to take is one country launching one missile and it's basically game over for all of us. There's going to have to be retaliation by whoever gets hit. Other countries are likely to get scared and start launching their stuff just to be preemptive. It'll probably turn into a big chain reaction that just wipes out everything. What makes no sense to me is these elites have created all these systems and gotten everything put in place where they can run everything with AI and robotics after culling most of the population and still have all the resources that they personally need. But then they're going to end up destroying it all because they can't figure out how to get along with one another. This is ridiculous.
Okay, this has to be a psyop. We can't believe anything anymore. Astronomers revealed that 3I Atlas appears to have reverse thrust right before it disappeared behind the sun. You know, the interstellar visitor passing through our solar system that's totally just a regular comet. It's reversing thrust, like appearing to slow down as if it's about to land. Now stop right there, debunkers, because scientists are giving a natural scientific explanation to this reversal. But something about this just feels so orchestrated, like someone or a group of people are behind this all with an ulterior motive, like an actual psychological operation. And every update that comes out about this all but confirms just that. So scientists say that as a comet gets closer to the sun, what they call a tail flip is actually quite common based on the angle we're viewing it from, which makes it look like the tailing trail behind a comet flipped from our perspective here on Earth, and hence reverse thrust as it makes its way around the sun, and typically happens at perihelion, which is an object's closest approach to the sun. Now, coincidentally, researchers state that perihelion is also when an artificial spacecraft would apply reverse thrust to slingshot itself via gravitational assist, applying the brakes to slow down, using the sun's gravity to change direction or even speed up, creating the anti-tail we are now seeing. And this is exactly why this object is so controversial. Everything about this whole sky event is just pure debate bait. The scientists are going to insist it's a totally natural comet tail flip, and the tinfoil hatters are going to tell you it's an alien spaceship getting ready to visit us. Now, even Avi Loeb, the main professor behind this whole 3I Atlas claim, stated, if 3I Atlas is a massive mothership, it will likely continue along its original gravitational path and ultimately exit our our solar system, essentially making this a bit of a recon mission rather than a full-blown invasion, but also kind of giving him an easy out while standing by his claim if nothing actually happens. He also says NASA has photo evidence that it is an alien probe that they are purposely gatekeeping and refusing to release to the public, who have been bizarrely silent about 3i Atlas conveniently as soon as it started getting close to us. Maybe the Anunnaki just wanted to check up on us to see what we've been up to since they last came around. It's been a couple thousand years after all. But whatever this thing is, I can't help but feel all the news around it has been intentionally designed to rage bait everyone into arguing about it. Every observation made about it seems to have an equal natural and alien explanation to it, so have at it and don't take things too seriously. Unless there's a massive mothership in our sky being broadcasted around the world, then we can start to get a little serious about it.
I've been waiting for updates on this thing because they literally told us just last week that they expected this thing to pop out from behind the sun on October 29th. Now they're saying they don't expect it to appear until sometime in November. But if those previous calculations were based on its speed and its trajectory, and if they were accurate, then the thing had to have slowed down, right? This is super frustrating. I'm trying to keep you guys updated on what's going on, but I'll literally read one detail on one website, but then I'll jump over to another article on a different website and it gives the exact opposite information. Both locations claiming to be citing reputable sources. For example, they're saying that the tail switched, implying that it slowed down. But just a week ago, they were telling us that the tail was on the wrong side being projected out of the front of the thing, so how could they use that to determine what it's doing? I've kind of reached the conclusion at this point that they either don't know what they're talking about or they're intentionally trying to steer us all into confusion. That is typically the pattern with the information they give us about space though, so not really a big surprise. Hey, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to drop your theories and your comments in the comment section down below.
The UK. There's hundreds of thousands of people in the streets protesting the mandatory digital ID that is starting on January 1st. But Americans are not protesting in the street because they don't even realize what they have in their pocket. They think that digital ID is a good thing. They don't understand it pings the government every time they take it out and use it. And they don't understand what it could become, that it could link them to a global identification system.
You know how the Real ID is there to make sure that the establishment has control over you and can shut down your life at the snap of a fingers? Well, guess what? Rand Paul's doing something about it. Chairman Rand Paul introduces the Safeguarding Personal Information Act of 2025. Real ID is effectively creating a national ID card with no limit on the personal information being shared between all 50 states, the District of Columbia possessions, and territories, said Chairman Rand Paul. My bill repeals this dangerous mandate and restores the privacy, due process, and First Amendment rights stripped away in 2005. The government should not have a dossier on every American. You should never have to show your papers to travel freely within your own country or enter a building your tax dollars paid for. And this is it. So this organization, CCHF, that is which stands for the Citizens Council for Health Freedom, applauds U.S. Senator Rand Paul's bill to repeal the Real ID. So this is important. So Citizens Council for Health Freedom, which is leading the charge nationwide against the federal Real ID system, commends U.S. Senator Rand Paul, chair of the U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs, for introducing the Safeguarding Personal Information Act of 2025, a bill to repeal the Real ID Act of 2005, introduced on September 11th, the anniversary of the very event that led to the creation of Real ID. Senator Paul's bill takes aim at the system of surveillance being built in the name of national security. Senator Paul is standing up for state sovereignty and for every American's right to privacy.
This is fantastic. I didn't think this was even being talked about by any of our senators. It seems like citizens and a few activists are really the only people that you even hear discussing this. Unfortunately, this was proposed in September November, and they still haven't even scheduled a date for the vote yet. I just wanted to let everybody know, at the very least, it does appear that someone is trying to do something. I feel like the only thing I ever get to present you guys with is just more bad news, because bad news is pretty much the only kind of news that we get from the controllers of this world. But this does give me a little hope that at least it's on the radar of someone who may be able to get the ball rolling on a solution. I just hope this doesn't turn out to be another one of those bills that we hear proposed that you then never hear anything else about. Because honestly, the amount of times I've heard someone propose a bill that sounded too good to be true, only to never hear another word about it, is astronomical. Only time will tell, but I'll keep you all posted if I hear any updates on this.
And I was walking the coastline, and this Japanese man walks up to me, very elderly, walking the coastline. He says, "You from America?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I've been to America." I said, "You have? When did you go to America?" He says, 1944. I said, "Oh, that's a long time ago." He said, "Yeah." He said, "I went Grand Canyon." I said, "What were you doing at Grand Canyon?" He says, "During war." He says, 600 Japanese brought to America to tunnel through Grand Canyon. Dynamite. He says, "We were blowing up Grand Canyon." I said, "Well, what was the purpose? What were you mining for?" He says, "Not mining." He says, "Looking." I says, "Well," the interpreter said, "Explain." And he says, "Looking for big giants. Looking for giants." And he got really quiet, and he got really quiet. And he said, I not tell all these years, not tell. He says, family die, I tell, promise not tell." And I told the interpreter, I says, "Tell him he's safe, that he does need to tell." He says, "You know about giants?" I said, "Yes, I know about Nephilim, yes." He says, "You do?" And I said, "Yes." He says, He got really quiet. And he talked to my interpreter, and then he said, "Tell American, I go Grand Canyon." He says, "Enter into big mine, big doors, 20 feet high, big solid doors." He says, "We blew the doors open." This is coming from the interpreter now. "Blew the doors open, and out come big giants. We flee for our life." He says, "Some not get away, and some not get away, some die." I asked my interpreter, what did they do at that point? He says, "Brought in big helicopters, take us out, but put us in confinement for days and days and days and days." And they weren't going to let us out because we might tell. But finally, the interpreters told me that they finally, after days and days and days of them being in confinement, they finally let the few that were left go back to Japan. And he not tell all those years. And that was in 2012. He had not told anybody about the giants that they found. And they were alive, and they were vicious.
I would love to believe this story, but there are a few issues that I see with it. She says this guy randomly approached her. Then she says multiple times that they were speaking to each other using an interpreter. So the interpreter just happened to be there, I guess, which I suppose would be possible if she's traveling with an interpreter. She just never clarifies that. But then she starts relaying the information that he was giving to her in broken English, like she's trying to remember and relay his exact words. But I find it very difficult to believe that an interpreter would be speaking that way. The Japanese man also makes the claim, apparently, that they were blowing up a door that was 20 feet high. The Japanese use the metric system. They don't measure things in feet. Then the guy tells her that they were flown out on a helicopter, and this was supposed to have taken place in 1944. Unless they were being flown out on some secret experimental government craft, the only helicopter I could find that was actually being used by the military back back in 1944 was the Sikorsky R-4. That's claimed to have been the world's first production helicopter. It could only carry 2 people, the pilot and 1 passenger, and it had a weight capacity of only 300 pounds. That kind of makes his claim impossible, unless of course they were using something from some black book project. But it was several years later before they even replaced it with a helicopter that could carry 3 people. So as much as I want to believe this, because I totally believe that they're hiding stuff in the Grand Canyon, I feel like this story is nonsense.
Can you point to, say, one big issue that is like so obvious when you look at it from that perspective, saying, well, clearly we're being given wrong information about that?
Well, if you want to just focus on the buildings, I would say that the best example is probably San Francisco. I was really shocked to learn how short the timeline is between the discovery of it to it becoming like the city that we know today. I think everybody would admit that it's a beautiful city, or it should be. It's not being taken care of like it should have been, but the landscape, the harbor, the Golden Gate Bridge, all the things about it are just, it's picturesque. But I was shocked when I found out that San Francisco, we're told, was not even discovered. Like the land, the bay was not discovered until 1776. So the year that they fought the Revolutionary War, or at least they had the Declaration of Independence, that's the year that the Spanish supposedly discovered it. And then so no one really lived there outside of like Franciscan friars or people like that until like, I want to say in 1848, that the population of San Francisco was like 1,000 people.
Right. And then the story is the 1849 gold rush.
Yeah, the story of the 49ers.
Right.
And the interesting part about that is that the narrative says that many people moved out west because of gold. Now, where they were mining for gold was, in a lot of cases, about 50 miles from San Francisco. So that doesn't really quite fit, like, that you would populate this whole city with people who are miners. And if it was just miners, like, are they also part-time construction workers? Do they build the city while they're in the mines the other parts of the day?
Yeah, good point.
Now, if you actually look at it, so yeah, you have 1,000 people in 1848, then you have this boom in population. Right around this time, like what I think the camera was being invented like in the 1820s, but you have early pictures of San Francisco like in the 1870s. So like the very earliest pictures you have, there's a really famous panoramic shot of San Francisco, and you pan around the city, there's not one building under construction in the whole place, but it's completely filled out. And you can look in the background, you can see Greco-Roman things, you can see old cathedrals. And the city looks like it's got age. Why I say this is a great example, though, is if you go back and there's old maps from the 1500s, 1600s, and 1700s, where there's a place called either San Francisco or S. Francisco listed on the maps right where it's at. But we're told that it wasn't discovered until like 200 years later. Yeah, I want to say it's like 1840, there's a picture that says S. Francisco, where it's at.
That's quite interesting. And I'm completely convinced that there's a lot more to the history of this country than what they tell us. But I thought that was pretty revealing that they're telling us that San Francisco wasn't even discovered until the 1800s, but it's literally listed on maps from the 1500s with the same name. And those buildings that they claim were all built in a 30-year window between the founding of the city and the moment that photograph was taken. To say that all of those structures went up in that short of a time frame just doesn't even sound remotely feasible. They're clearly fudging the details on something here. What's really frustrating is since we didn't have cameras back then, we have no way to know for sure. And since we have AI now, people in the future won't know what they're being lied to about. The controllers of the world will just be able to manufacture evidence in order to support whatever narrative it is they're pushing in the future. As fun as it is to dig into this stuff, I doubt we'll ever get any actual confirmation on our true history. The only way I see that happening is if somebody discovers some historical documents that they thought they had already destroyed. And even then, they're just going to deny it.
We've heard a number of stories where we found out that the people who are populating the driver's license bureaus say information that's not true. So they say you have to get a real ID, or this in particular in Tennessee, or you can't get you can't switch it back. Because as I understand it, there's a national coalition, you'll know the name of it, of driver's license bureaus. And they're all members, and they get their information not from their own legislators or the attorney general. They're getting information from this trade organization that's promoting things like the Real ID.
They're calling these agents rogue DMV agents, right? Because there's an actual rule and there's an actual law, and they have to be following that. That's what they should be following. And we have a history, which I'll say in a moment, of them not doing that in an interim when Real ID wasn't being pushed. But for the moment, what we hear from people is they go in and they aren't even asked, even though there's a choice in the law. They're not asked. They're just given the Real ID. They don't even know there's something else, and they don't realize what they've got in their hands. And then you're talking about AMVA, the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, AMVA, and they're the ones that testified to Congress saying our plans are to digitize the Real ID, put it on phones, and have remote and real-time access to it, right? And AMVA has gotten federal money to create this system. I'll just call it a pointer system. And so all by themselves, the DMVs and this AMVA group decided that they would make sure that people could have only one driver's license. So they say one driver, one license. Now, this is not a rule or a law anywhere, but because they have all come together to do this, they will not let you keep a driver's license, for instance, in Florida, if you move to Kentucky, let's just say. But there's actually no rules or laws about that. So they've just created this system. It's a pointer system, and when the DMV goes in to see if you've got a license somewhere else, it will point to you, and it will say that you've got a license in this state. And then it won't let you get the DMV won't let you get another license unless you give up the other license that you have. So they have done this thing all on their own. They are rogue. They are, as you say, AMVA is its own non-government entity, but it has gotten money to set up this system and database.
Until coming across this video this morning, I hadn't heard about the agents at the DMV not giving people the option to get a regular driver's license and just forcing them to get the Real ID. But if you look it up, this is apparently becoming quite the problem. There's a lot of people complaining about this online, but it's starting to look to me like we're all over here in the US watching how this digital ID stuff rolls out in the UK to kind of see what's going to happen with it. And the whole time they've been sneaking ours into effect using this Real ID. I'm thinking they're going to get everybody signed up for this Real ID and then just make the announcement that that's going to be our country's digital ID. Then, since everybody will already have one, they'll just start adding stuff to it. They'll start putting more and more restrictions on what you can and can't do without one. But the evidence seems to be pointing toward that being the goal here. I'm almost wondering if they knew there were too many people here watching out for digital ID. So if they just came right out and told us that's what we were all signing up for, they would get more pushback than the citizens in the UK have given their government. So they're trying to sneak it in by lying to us about what exactly it is that we're signing up for.
Apparently scientists have discovered how to breathe out of your butt.
Sounds like they're gaslighting us.
A Japanese scientist has invented butt breathing. And no, I'm not just joking. Scientist Takanori Takabe was awarded an Ig Nobel Prize for inventing a way for human beings to breathe out of their butt and survive off of that amount of oxygen indefinitely. The Ig Nobel Prize is awarded to scientists that first make us laugh and then make us think. And this is a real thing. It actually has a huge impact on almost every field of medicine because it's an alternative to human lungs. And he first got the idea when he noticed that some animals were able to absorb oxygen in their rectum. So he started with animal experiments primarily on mammals and gave them perfluorocarbon, which is an extremely hyperoxygenated liquid, via enema or rectal catheter. Now, as wild as this seems, a lot of you have probably seen the James Cameron movie The Abyss, where they drown a rat in this liquid and then later go down to the bottom of the ocean breathing this oxygenated liquid. Well, what the scientist is basically doing, and we're just summarizing here for the sake of short form content, is put this underwater diving liquid, this hyperoxygenated liquid from the abyss, into the butts of various mammals that are similar to human beings, and it was discovered that it provided enough oxygen enough to their bloodstream for them to survive. It's not as good as lungs, it's not super healthy, but it does help them survive, and is very serious research. Cincinnati Children's, Tokyo Medicine, and Dental University think it might save lives.
Wow, that's amazing that they figured this out, but if my lungs are destroyed and I have to keep surviving by absorbing oxygen through some rectal injection, I think I'd rather just go ahead and be done with things. That sounds like an absolutely miserable experience. You would probably feel like you were drowning, but the end never came. Although, as with most things, you probably would be able to eventually get used to it. And I know that was kind of a weird story, but I wanted to end on something a little less serious with this one. It seems like we've had nothing but trauma-inducing news reports here lately, and I hate to think that I may be slowly destroying someone's peace of mind with the type of content that I share, but some of this stuff just needs to be talked about. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. God willing, I'll be back tomorrow with another one. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to drop your theories and your comments in the comment section down below. But guys and gals, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.